and I don't want to sound harsh, but if someone's trying to sign up and they don't have any kind of experience,
Okay.
this is maybe not the best race to start for them. We're gonna
Sure.
let them know that.
Yeah.
That we want you to volunteer, come out, help, be a part of it, but maybe don't like please like don't sign up. Not quite yet.
Hello, welcome back to another Gotta Run Racing episode.
Hello there.
I don't know what number we're at now.
61?
Okay, I'll
Maybe.
take it. I'll take it.
So we've been busy.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend. Our very
Sure
first
was.
running with the dogs.
We volunteered at Canadian Canicross Sports inaugural Trails and Tales Classic in Mansfield. So Canicross is a run with your dog race where you're harnessed in and your dog takes the lead.
Literally up the hill
Oh my gosh.
and down.
It was so fun to watch. The Huskies, the German hair pointers, the retrievers, they were all there.
And they knew they were ready to run. They knew this was a race.
Oh yeah, it was a fever pitch. All the barking and everything when the race started. It was so fun to watch. We posted some video on our Instagram if you want to check it out. But it was an absolute blast, and Sean Sobin did an amazing job for his first race, and we're pretty sure he'll be doing it again.
Oh yeah, because there's definitely a need. Oh, I think it's the only one in Ontario.
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's definitely a growing sport, so you got to check it out.
Right, and what is happening in the world of Gotta Run Racing?
Well, we're finishing up our We Run the North virtual National Park Series, and it will be, I've had a few people ask, it will be running again next year. So that's exciting.
And we're in a new month this year, in December. What's the park?
It is the final two territories, Northwest Territories and Nunavut.
Nunavut, okay.
Nunavut, yes.
Well, none of that. And who do we have on the podcast today?
Well, thanks to a suggestion from one of our Patreon supporters, we are chatting with a race director, Brian Gallant, who has been race directing for 20 years. And I'm sure you guys
Here in Canada, yeah.
all in Canada. And I'm sure you guys are familiar because a lot of the people we've spoken to have done his races. So we're talking Black Spur, Sinister 7, the iconic Canadian Death Race,
Yeah.
and most excitingly, Canada's newest 200-miler, the Divide.
Yeah, that's going to be something.
It sure is. So let's get to it.
And here is Brian.
Brian, welcome to the podcast, and big congrats to you on creating this new, exciting 200-miler. I think it's the only one in Canada called the Divide.
The Divide 200, yeah. It'll be the only that we know of anyway in Canada this year. I'm sure there are other people waiting the wings to do their own, but so far it looks like we're the only one. It's not the first in Canada, but the only one in 2023 for sure, and the first in Western Canada.
Right. Yes, that is true.
And what drew you to directing in the first place?
So I was competing in adventure races way back in the day. And, we had this sort of group of guys at my old office in Calgary that were really into it. When I first heard about adventure racing, they said, oh yeah, it's this 36-hour long race. I thought that's not possible. I mean, I was always an active guy, but I thought there's nobody can race that long. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And, over time, that year I went and supported a team of competitors in that adventure race. And then we got to be, good friends, and we decided the guy that was hosting those races wasn't going to do it anymore after that year. So we took over the company, and there were 8 of us involved, and that didn't work out so well. I mean, lots of great people, but too many cooks, right? And so over time, we all went our separate ways, except for me. I'm still here, and I'm the only one left. And I had other partners along the way, great people that helped move us along. But now it's just me.
Well, let's go through each one of your events. Number one being Sinister 7, named after the 7 peaks that surround this race, I assume.
Well, Seven Sisters Mountain is a ridge, and it sort of towers over the latter part of the course on what's now leg 6 of Sinister 7. And the name actually came about because my former partner, Andrew, and I, when we were kind of working on it and we were just messaging back and forth, and we were like, maybe the Old Man Ultra because the Old Man River, or the Crow's Nest Mountain Ultra, and I was kind of like, it all sounds kind of hollow. And we were bouncing these names back and forth. And I had a map on my wall, and I was just reading something online, and I saw the word Sinister, and I looked up at the map, and I somehow transposed it in my brain. The Seven Sisters Mountain became the Seven Sinister Mountain. And I was like, what about like the Seven Sinister or the Sinister 7 or something like that? And we were just like, that's it. That was it. And that's just this chance, we just happened to just find the name because I glitched on my name reading my map. Like, I was actually, to be honest, I was kind of against totally an ultramarathon because I was still very firmly rooted in adventure racing at the time. And I thought, it's going to be kind of boring just to run, isn't it? And then like Andrew got super excited about having an ultramarathon in our community. And so he got me really excited about it. And when I realized, wow, this is actually, it's going to be great. Like, these people are wonderful. And I, it's a single sport, and that's not kind of what I'm used to. I think it's something that, same kind of passion, right? And the strategy, that's what I thought was going to be missing. I thought the strategy would be missing, but it isn't. There's a lot of strategy in how you plan your run. Especially if you're trying to be, on the podium, a lot of strategy on how you handle that. So, it's always exciting for me. And even to this day, Sinister 7 is usually our first race of the season, just because the weather here is, so variable up until June in the Rockies, Southern Rockies especially. So every time though, I get that lump in my stomach. It's just this ball of excitement, and it never changes. No matter how many times we do it, it's still that same feeling.
Let's go on to the Canadian Death Race, which was my very first. This is 2005.
Yeah,
my very first ultra I've ever done, and Jody was on a crew
relay
team.
Yeah.
And when did you take this over, and why did you take over this iconic Canadian Death Race?
Sure. So just before that, I had started Black Spur Ultra in 2015, and so I always had wanted to have a series, you can't have a series with 2 races as far as I'm concerned. It's got to be 3. You got to have like a tripod, right? A 2-legged stool doesn't stand up. You need 3. So I wanted to have a series of events, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that, there's this pie of racers out there. And over the years, the pie of trail runners is kind of growing, but so is the number of races, right? So you're splitting this pie thinner and thinner and thinner. Adding more and more races, to me, isn't the logical answer. It's to help races that are already there become better. At the same time, again, I really wanted to have this triple series. And so a lot of racers had encouraged me because they said, hey, Death Race, it sounds like they're going to pack it in. And I thought, that would be a real shame because it is probably the most notorious event in Canada. It was one of the first 2 big ultra marathons in Canada.
Right.
Definitely the best known. And it had a real, I remember even back in the days when I started adventure racing in the early 2000s, people were like, oh yeah, have you heard of the Death Race? And that's just people on the street, right? Friends of mine that had no connection to any kind of endurance sports whatsoever. It was almost a household name back then, all the media coverage that it had. So it really inspired a lot of people. And I thought, I'm getting all this encouragement from people to check out to see if the people that run Death Race would be willing to turn it over to me. And I just thought it would be really terrible to see such an iconic event disappear.
Absolutely.
And rather than recreating something in kind of a climate when there's already, 2 to 3 ultra marathons every weekend in a region,
Mm-hmm.
why not just take over another event that needs some help?
Yeah.
And so, I approached them, and they agreed it was time for them to hand it over to somebody else.
Well, it's nice to see that it's still happening, because it is probably still one of the more well-known races out there, even to non-ultra runners.
And you still have to bring your coin everywhere and show your coin, right? Is that still the rule?
So we made a little change this year, and it freaked people out so much. And I love this. I was just like in the background the whole time as people were panicking. Like, we didn't go out the coins at registration this year, and people were texting me. All these racers I know were texting me. My phone was blowing up, and I wasn't saying a word about it. So what we did was, I thought, I want things to be purposeful again, right? And I thought, if somebody really wanted to, they wouldn't actually, unless you check them regularly. And the chances of finding somebody in a spot check out of hundreds of racers is small. And the time it takes and just having the resources to do it. So spot checks were infrequent. They could go without carrying their coin right up until the last transition area and get it just before they go on the boat. And I thought, what's stopping them from doing that? Unless we're checking all the time.
Yeah.
So I thought, let's make them earn that coin. So we put the coins in a bucket on top of the mountain on leg 4 on Hamel. So they had to go up and go out on the spine, if you remember that part.
Yes.
And you kind of run up to the mountain. You go way out on this little ridge line and come back.
Yep.
And I thought also you have to go get something to prove you're on the spine.
There you go.
So now you go out there to get your coin, and only one person missed it. So luckily. And so they had to go back and get it afterward, but they felt sad for themselves. But, them's the breaks, right? And I think it was actually, I talked to a few people ahead of time, and they were like, oh, this is a pretty big change. I don't know how people are going to like that. I don't like it. And then I did it because it's amusing for me. As I said, the reason we're doing it is to be purposeful. Like I said, you're going to go earn that coin now, but it's purposeful for me as well, because you have to get out there and get this coin and bring it back, and you can't go on without it.
No, that's a good idea.
But it's also amusing for me. So that was one of the main reasons. And it was actually really well received. People thought it was brilliant. They really loved the idea of like, I can't miss this coin, and it became sort of I think immediately like kind of a new way of seeing it, a new classic, I guess. And it was instantly accepted.
I think I might go back and do this race just to do that.
Great. Yeah, it's worth it. It's a great race. So
there we go.
Let's move on to Black Spur.
Yeah.
There's another one for you.
There you go. Yeah.
Which I did in 2017.
Very unique medal.
Yeah. I did it because I wanted to earn my UTMB points, and that's what I like about all your races, is that you're either getting UTMB points or a ticket to Western States.
Right. But Black Spur is that kind of world-class European style event that I really love. I've always loved Black Spur because it has the kind of trails that I love. It's not all single track, but as having run it, a lot of winding technical single track. And there are sections that are just up rock slabs. It's a kind of a trail, but it's just basically a big sheet of rock. And then you're winding through the trees on these ridge lines and up and down over stuff. And that's what really gets my engine going. So I really enjoy that kind of terrain. And it's really varied too. I mean, you go from these lush pine forests into sort of almost like a savanna-like terrain on the south end of the course as you get down towards the south end of the course down to the river. I've never been a big fan of sort of like repeating loop events, but in Black Spur, it makes sense because you see it in such a different way the second time as well. For most people, because they're seeing it in the dark the next time and getting into dawn. And you've always had a chance to kind of what's coming up now, and how you're going to approach it. You have a chance to learn on the first go around. So,
well, it's great for crewing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the easiest race you can ever crew. You can go sit in your hotel room or go to the pool, get a text from your racer.
She was looking at me at the balcony,
hill,
coming down the ski hill.
I better go out now.
I better go out now.
Yeah, there you go.
She had to put her beer down.
Yeah. So it's great for that. I mean, what I always said to people was, if you want a good race to start out with, and especially with a crew, take them to Black Spur and make them see how great crewing is, and then take them to death race where they're like racing around the valley all over the place, like through the bush and out in the middle of nowhere. And then you can like kind of ease them into the harder ones, right? They're hauling gear, across the field and whatnot.
Exactly.
With a black spur, you walk up with your drop bag and you put it in the tent and you're ready to race. It's
That's
that
awesome.
easy.
Well, we don't want to run out of time, but we really want to talk about the Divide, which is coming up in September.
Right.
So can you give us just a brief preview of what the runners can expect over this 200-mile course?
Sure. So if you've heard of the Great Divide Trail, the Great Divide Trail Association showed up in town a few years ago. Now, this route has been around since the 70s, I believe, but they've been improving it every year. So I actually started to do a little bit of volunteer work with them, just here and there, not extensively. And I really fell in love with the idea because, the Continental Divide has always played a big part in life in the Southern Rockies because, we're right on the verge of BC, right? I mean, I'm looking at the Divide right behind me when I stare out my window, and it's always been really inspiring. And, I kept thinking about it. And then the 200, we talked about it for a long time. I mean, I have a budget that I put together about 5 years ago just to test out the theory of how can we do this and make it, affordable and accessible and whatnot. And it's a very expensive event to run. So, it kind of put me off right away. But I kept looking at it every year thinking, well, how can we make this happen? And then this year, talking to my crew, they're all such passionate outdoors people. And some of them now are just phenomenal athletes, doing the 24-hour backyard style races and whatnot, and involved in some really heavy events. And I thought, with this crew behind me, 100% we can make this work, and so we thought it's time. Like, Canada needs a 200-miler.
100%.
The Americans can't have all the fun.
No, exactly.
Yeah, so we need something in Canada, and there's no better place in the Southern Rockies. We have great resources here. So we're based out of Castle Mountain Resort, and that'll be the start and finish. The course is going to be largely focused on the Alpine as much as possible. It starts off with a big, long, flat run, not flat, but flat-ish for the Rockies. As you head south, you're gaining elevation the whole time. And you get up to La Culotte Ridge, which is on the Great Divide Trail. And it's probably one of the most spectacular parts of the Great Divide Trail. And it is a ridgeline walk, and it's very slow. You have to watch yourself the whole time. It's not like it's just a cakewalk or anything. And from there, you circle around into there's the West Castle Valley where you start, and then there's the Castle Valley, which is across the Barnaby Ridge, the South Fork Range. And then you make your way up Whistler Mountain and Table Mountain to other iconic peaks in the area. Then you get yourself back to Castle Mountain Resort, and you make your way through what's an area called Lost Creek. And the south end of Lost Creek it's really different because it was ravaged by a fire in 2003. And so all the growth is coming back in. It's greening, but you still have all the old dead wood, and it's very open. It's a very different kind of a look to the area. You can look across the valley and see animals on a hill across the valley from you now, whereas that wasn't possible before 2003.
Very
It's
cool.
all big, thick, lush forest.
It's not first come, first serve who signs up. It's a lottery-based system.
Yes.
And also there's prize money that's going to be awarded. How did that, or why did you want to put prize money into this?
Honestly, we want to attract some big names, and
but they still have to put their name in the lottery, though. They're not.
They do, they do. Yeah. So I think that to make it fair, we're going to give everyone a chance, and we are also asking people to give us a little bio. And I don't want to sound harsh, but if someone's trying to sign up and they don't have any kind of experience, this is maybe not the best race to start for them. We're going to let them know that.
Yeah.
That, we want you to volunteer, come out, help, be a part of it. But, maybe don't sign up. Not quite yet. And we'll talk to them about it and say, like, we want to make sure that this is a good experience for you. And so I don't want to sound elitist, but at the same time, 200 miles is more than a year of training, right? You're already behind if you haven't started yet, unless you have some really big experience already.
Yeah.
You can't start this out as your first big ultra. You need to work up to it. And I do have to let everybody know. I'm not sure if it's clear to people out there what the terrain in the Southern Rockies is like. It's not like it's all groomed trail. It's very rocky, Rocky Mountains, right? That's not just because there's big rocks. It's because there's little rocks all over the trail too, right? It's the kind of stuff that chews you up pretty fast, and you have to be prepared for that.
Well, I would like to say that your race names, Sinister, Death, Divide, great names for great races.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Brian.
Well, whenever we do our chat on our podcast with different athletes, and talk about your races specific, we put video in the background on YouTube. And thank you for allowing us to do that. And whenever we do post at you on your Instagram and socials, you always share it. So thank you again for doing that for us.
Yeah, well, we love to be a part of the community. And it's a global community, right? So we need for people to see how beautiful racing is in Canada. So we're happy to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time.
And I want to get out to Sinister 7 one day.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the last one I have to do. Besides the Divide.
Besides the Divide. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I really enjoy talking with folks like yourselves, and I had a great time chatting with you.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
Well, there you have it. The Divide is going to be something to talk about.
And don't get any ideas, Norman. Because when he was describing that course, I could feel your excitement going up and down. I'm like, no 200 milers for you. We'll volunteer. How's that?
Would I do a 200 miler?
Yeah, would you?
Well, hey, after UTMB, I'm only 30 miles away.
Oh, and this is how it starts. This is exactly what happens when people sign up for races. Well, I did 42 kilometers. What's another 8?
That's right.
I did 50. What's another 30?
Yeah.
Etc., etc.
Yeah, well, hey.
And that's what gets us all into trouble.
Well, I can't wait to see how it all plays out. And, of course, his other events, Black Spur, Death Race, Sinister 7. They're Canadian iconic.
They sure are.
They've been around a long time. And
They sure are.
They're not going anywhere.
No,
And-
so check them out.
And you can get your Western States tickets. You can get your UTMB stones.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah.
We have it all here in Canada.
We sure do.
There you go. Until next time.
Cheers.
Bye.